Scano, good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to join everyone again for Mush Whole Voices Thursday at 11. And we have a really special guest today joining us. And as usual, our special guest, Roberta Hill and Lila Bruyer. My French is not so good, eh? I'm just loving the conversations that we have in this back room and just being able to connect with each other. So this is a real honor to have this space and time on this platform that just like to acknowledge Speak Up and Empower, who has supported Grandmother's Voice for many years and really being able to bring Indigenous voices to the forefront during this time. And it's like we were meant to be doing this because we started this like 4 years ago and planning to be in this time. And so I'd like to acknowledge our elders who continue to support us, share knowledge, and prepare us for what it is that our purpose is in this day, which is to elevate the voices of Indigenous Indian residential school survivors. Their courage has just been amazing. The way that even just the two of you ladies, but would like to acknowledge all of the survivors who continue to share their voice and experiences, really help Indigenous and non-Indigenous people across this nation become more awake to what the realities were and are to this day. And so I'm really excited to just introduce the two of you, connect you, and then also just give this time for you to share your experiences and messages for everyone watching. Nyawa, welcome. Roberta, did you want to say hi and introduce?
I do. I do. And I think, Lila, we were talking just before we went live here, and I think we've crossed paths somewhere along the line, maybe out in Winnipeg or something.
Yeah.
But yes, I'd like to introduce Lilo Bruyer. Is it Bruyere?
Bruyere.
Ojibway from Couchiching First Nation?
Yeah.
Northwestern Ontario. You're a current member of the National Survivor Circle for Truth and Reconciliation in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And you went to the St. Francis Residential School?
Fort Francis.
Oh, St. Margaret's at Fort Francis, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Age 6 to 14. That's a long time to be in a residential school. So I think today you're going to be discussing the impacts or how it's affected you in your life, probably ongoing up to today, and how you're dealing with things right now. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'll just greet you with my spirit name. Bonjour. My spirit name is Dancing Eagle Woman, and I'm Bear Clan, and I'm originally from Couchiching First Nation. And I'm a residential school survivor, and a survivor of a lot of things. So, yeah, it's a pleasure to be here today. And I've been doing, residential school education with communities, universities, and, elementary schools, and for probably maybe about 15 years now. So it's always a pleasure to educate people about how the residential school impacts survivors, and I start with myself. And I went to residential school in Fort Francis. I'm the second youngest to 12. I had 9 brothers and 2 sisters, and I'm second generation. My parents went to residential school, the same school that my older siblings attended, and so it's in Fort Francis. We had an old school, and they tore that down. I can't remember which year, but I remember being in that school for a little while, and then they built the school that's there now and on the reserve, and so it's. I could probably see my reserve right from the bedroom window, but I still wasn't allowed to go home. So, and so the biggest impact was going to the residential school. I remember seeing those stairs. They looked so big back then, and I had no idea where I was going. I had no idea why I was going there. I just couldn't understand why I was being left there, and So that was the first impact of abandonment. And I didn't understand because I was only 6. And a little 6-year-old, is the age that you need your parents. You need your mother. You need that nurturing. And starting that day, it was I was robbed of that. And so that impacted me for quite a few years. And if anything, like there's a lot of talk about sexual abuse in the school, and mine was physical. And I experienced a lot of physical abuse there. And so the abandonment, was what really did, the emotional part of me, and I really had to get some professional help for that. So I was there till I was 14, and I went back to Fort Frances probably maybe about 3 weeks ago, and we had a meeting at the TRC, which I'm, the Elders Committee, which I'm on. I've been on there for the last 2 years, and my term is almost up, but I'm still involved, and I'm going to remain involved after I'm done, and I'm still active in doing public speaking and educating. So when I was, my reaction to that was I was really rebellious, and I would lip off a lot to the nuns, and and I have a sister that was in the school the same time I was, and she always got the impact of me, because me, being so, I guess I was lippy, and I would answer back to the nuns, and and she would get mad at me, and she'd say, every time you get in trouble, I get the brunt of it too, So and that's how I behaved in there, and so I went home, 3 weeks ago, and but I've seen the school, I've seen the church, I've seen the place where I started, where I ran away. But I saw it from different eyes this time, because I had a group that I presented to while I was down there in Fort Frances, and it was a group here in Sarnia, and I didn't want to, I was invited to speak to them, and I didn't want to let them down, so I did the Zoom from Fort Frances, and I had 2 hours, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with them for 2 hours? These they were young kids, and so one of my relatives said to me, "Why don't you take them right to the school?" And I said, "Wow, what a great idea!" So I took the, I went to the school, and I did my talk from there, and I showed them, the area where I ran away. I didn't go on the highway when we first started. Like there was 5 of us when we first started, and the 2 went back, and the 3 of us stayed together. So on the way back to Fort Frances, I visited one of my fellow survivors, which I always visit her whenever I go by the Sault Ste. Marie, and she was one that ran away with me. And today, we did a lot of healing on that, and so now we talk about it, and we joke about it, like, whose big idea was that, and it was mine, and we planned it on the bus, I was at that age where I was going to elementary school uptown, that was my first time ever to experience being around non-Indigenous people, and so they bussed us uptown to go to school, and that's where I made the plans to run away. So, and normally what we would do we would go to the highway and start walking, but we went by the water, and it was 40 below, and it was the water was frozen, and we crossed there, and so I talked to my school buddy, and I asked her, how old was I, because I don't remember how old I was, and she said, she said, I'm pretty sure we were only 12. Can you imagine a 12-year-old running away, 40 below weather? I tell you by the grace of God, that I'm still here, that I'm able to talk about this and, and survive that, because we walked a long ways. And I tell you, I think if we would have sat down someplace, we probably would have fell asleep and froze. And, and I realized just by going back there, either to Fort Frances on the highway, I realized how far we did walk. And I thought, 12 years old and I'm walking down the highway, I eventually got on the highway. We seen this little yellow bus coming, and we three of us jumped in the ditch. We didn't want to get caught. And one of my schoolmates kicked me in the teeth, while we were jumping, we were running away. And we laugh about that today, and so we made it to our destination. But, I always tell people, if you're going to plan an escape, don't go to anywhere where your family's there, because they turned us in, and we got, picked up by the police. And it was probably about this time of the day, and the police said to us, if I leave you at the police station, would you guys stay there? Because, we had to wait because there was no bus until evening. And he said, would you guys wait there? And we said, no, well, we're not going to wait there. We'll just take off again. And we were pretty honest with him. So we ended up riding in the cruiser all afternoon with this cop. And so I think we were a big pain to him because he had to take care of us. That's the first time I ever sat in the back of a police cruiser. And so we were met by one of the supervisors at the school, and my punishment for that was I had to clean the school, and I had to clean the stairs on my knees with a toothbrush. And when I gave the kids that I was talking to, I gave them a tour. I showed them those stairs, and I showed I showed them where I cleaned. And so if anybody says to me, do you know this place? I'll say, oh yeah, I know every little nook and cranny because I was the one that cleaned it. And so, and I was asked, did you get triggered by going back there? And I said no, because I'd been there before. And I said, and showing the students about going back in there, and showing them what I experienced there was more or less like a growing experience for me, that I was able to look at that, and I was able to, to show them, what happened there. So that's why mine was physical, and so my another experience I had in the school, I don't know how old I was, but it must have been maybe, about 11, 12 maybe, but it was a privilege to be able to stay up late, and watch the old black and white TV, and the nun told us that we could do that. So I don't know what the importance was, but we stayed up and watched the movie. And she said, make sure and go to bed, don't wash up because I don't want you waking up the younger girls. So of course me, being rebellious, I decided to wash my hair. And so I went to wash my hair, and she got mad at me, and she grabbed a ruler, the ones that are thick like that, and it had like a sharp edge on it, and she took it and she just kept hitting me on my back, and she broke the ruler, and and she was going to go get another one, and my sister was in the same room as I was, and she said pretend to cry. And she said, because if you don't, she's going to keep hitting you. So I don't know if I pretend or if I really did cry, but I'm still, I'm still scarred today from that. I'm a senior now, and the residue of that, I guess, is still, in my back. Most of my damage that I have today is from my back. I got rheumatoid arthritis in my back, And so it's starting to affect the way I walk, you know. But I still, I don't let that stop me. You know, I still go, but I have to use, you know, a walker because I can't stand for a long time. So that was one of the impacts that, you know, happened to me, and it ended up scarring me for a lifetime. So, but I've seen a lot of other, you know, survivors in the school, you know, go through a lot of abuse, you know, and, you know, the nuns would come and, you know, come and pick up their, you know, whoever's turn it was, you know, that they would abuse, you know. And I seen that, and you know, when you see it, it might as well happen to you, you know, because you see that and you know what's going on, you know, because you could hear them crying, you know, and so we knew that whatever was going on was not good, you know. So I was in the school till I was 14 and seen stuff like that, you know, and so then when I got out, they boarded me in a you know, non-Indigenous home, and they were good people, you know. They took good care of me, but I was still rebellious. You know, I wasn't interested in getting an education, you know, and you know, that's when I was probably maybe grade 10 by then, and I started to experience alcohol, and that was the way that I dealt with my pain. You know, was by drinking. I don't remember my first drink, you know, but alcohol affected my life for quite a few years, and it just gradually got worse. You know, I've seen a lot of alcohol in my family, you know, and I told myself I wasn't going to be like that, you know, that I wasn't going to drink like that, but I just did things different, that's all, you know, and it did become a problem for me. But, you know, I think of everything that happened to me, you know, I really believe that Creator had his hand on me, you know, because I'm able to sit here today and tell you the story of my life, you know, and really, you know, everything that happened to me, I should be dead, you know, but I'm here, you know, and I'm able to share this with you, you know. And it didn't, you know, when I first started sharing my story, it wasn't easy. You know, I was trained to do public speaking, and after I would be done, you know, I would have to literally go in the washroom and get sick, you know, because all that stuff made me sick, you know. But you know, but as you share your story, you know, you get stronger, you know, and you know, and I was able to get stronger and talk about the emotions that it brought up for me, you know. So even as an adult today, I can still get triggered, you know, but I know what to do when I get triggered, you know, and I'm, you know, I'm 68 years old and I'm still in counseling, you know, and I probably will be for the rest of my life because, you know, I suffer from PTSD, you know, and the depression really gets bad sometimes. You know, I don't know what's wrong with me, you know. I'm like, you know, it's the thinking, eh? You know, but you get those tools, you know, that you have this little toolbox, you know, of things that you need to do to take care of yourself. So, you know, so I do my smudging, you know, I smudge myself, you know, because of the pandemic now, we can't, you know, really partake too much in ceremonies, you know, but I do my own, and I work with medicines, you know, and I stay involved and I stay active because if I sit down and I get depressed, you know, you know, I start to get stuck in my head and, you know, and start remembering, and, you know, and then it's harder to get out of it, you know. So I do what I have to do, you know, to maintain, you know, my life, you know, because you know, when I think about it, like, you know, it was a nightmare, you know. And some mornings I wake up and I think I'm part of a nightmare, you know, because every day you hear about, you know, different things that are going on, you know, with survivors, and, you know, and I think, you know, how, you know, like, you know, I'm part of this nightmare, and but I took that nightmare and I made it, you know, into something, you know, by looking back And what I'm doing today, sharing my story and giving hope to other survivors, because I have a lot of survivor friends who cannot talk. They can't talk about this stuff. They'll talk to me, but they can't do this, by sharing it publicly, because it's too hard. So I became their voice, and I'm really proud of that, because, a lot of them said, I'm really glad that you're out there, that you're doing what you're doing. When I was in Winnipeg, 3 weeks ago, I had a survivor that came and seen me, in Winnipeg, and it was so good to sit with her, and like, we're like couple of little girls, you get together and you start giggling and you talk about, things that you did when you were younger, like what number were you, I was number 13 for a long time. And that's the way they acknowledged you, in the school. You weren't, my name wasn't Lila, it was number 13. So they would call number 13, and just like that, you would react, and you knew that they needed you for something. So, so we hear a lot about, about numbers that we were given, and even today, like, as old as a lot of survivors are today, we remember what our numbers were, and I reacted to that, but and one thing that I noticed when I go to conferences, with survivors in there, you hear a lot of laughter, and but when it comes time to talk about it, you hear a lot of tears, you see a lot of tears and hear a lot of crying, and and it really gets to you. But we're there to support each other, and there's just something about survivors, when you say that you're a residential school survivor, right away the first question we say to each other: which school did you go to? How long were you there? And that wall is gone. We create a bond between each other. And I have fellow survivors, even males, that I'll call up and say, hey, how you doing? Especially since they've found the children, they uncovered the children. Like, a lot of us survivors were impacted, are still impacted today because of that, because we knew, we heard about those stories inside school. And when they started to discover them, the 215, it impacted us, and I was depressed for probably a week or maybe even 2 weeks, I couldn't stop crying, and our, the Indigenous nation is still grieving today, because of that, because they're not all found yet, we're just beginning. So, as those numbers rise, we're impacted again. I remember when it went up to 1,000, I thought, oh my God, they haven't even done my community yet, and I know that there's children there, so the numbers just keep rising, and the media thinks because they're hiding the numbers, that we're not going to find out, but we find out, we have ways of finding out, we ask each other, and and since I'm on the TRC, all I got to do is just ask them, what's the number? How far are we today? How many First Nations did they search? How many have they found? And so it affects all of us. And so what are they going to do about it? We have to use our voice. Are we going to let this just continue happening? Because we never, when we were in school, we lost our voice. We got punished because of our voice. We got punished because of our language. We couldn't talk our language. When I was at home, I heard my language, my Ojibway language, but my mother didn't want us to learn, because she was afraid for us to get beat up, and she would say, don't say that, and so I lost my language. Sometimes I'm at ceremonies, I understand what they're saying, And I had an elder that I worked with, who would speak nothing but Ojibway to me, and she used to tell me, listen with your heart, don't listen with your head. Sometimes I listened with my head and I start guessing what she was telling me, and then she'd laugh, because she'd say, no, 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 she would listen too hard, like, listen to what I'm saying. And then I would get it. So, when I go home and I hear the drum back home, like I always end up in tears, because it hits me. And that's something that was robbed from me. I was told, that we couldn't hear the drum, that it was devil worship, that we couldn't be part of that. And I would think to myself, how can they tell me that? When they're white people, why are they telling me that? They don't know nothing about the drum, And yet I was so attracted to it. I was so, because it would just touch my heart. The songs would touch my heart, and then I would cry because I really wanted to know what they were singing about. So, so those are, that's another impact that happened, the things that were robbed from, and so, we lost so much of ourselves, but now we're trying to find, trying to put ourselves back together. Yeah. And I always say, that I'm like a broken vase, and I'm putting myself back together. And then somebody yelled in the crowd one day, yeah, but you're the rose inside that vase. And I thought, oh, thank you so much. I said, what a beautiful thing to say. I never thought of that, And so, it's up to us, to put ourselves back together. It's up to us to heal ourselves. It's they did the damage, but I took the responsibility for myself, to start the work and start to look back, just to look back for a while, and started to get help. I had to go through 5 years of therapy. I had a therapist that worked with me. I was really, like I said, Creator had his hand on me, and I met a therapist who's Indigenous, and he worked with me for 5 years. I had, I did this thing called disassociate. I would lose time. I would take a little journey inside my head, and I would miss so much time, and it wasn't safe for me to be in the present. So I would escape, and I would use the water. I would go down by the water, and I would sit there, and I'd see the sparkles on the water, and I used to imagine in my head that those were diamonds, and inside that water was the peace, that I felt, and I would escape into that because it wasn't safe for me to be in reality, and so reality, I missed a lot of that, and I had to learn how to be okay with staying in the present. So I had to learn that, so I went through 5 years of therapy, and then when it was time to have a look at what was so traumatic that I didn't want to stay in the present, what was it that happened to you, that made you escape, so I had to go back and I lost that little girl, that little inner child, I lost contact with her, as far as I was concerned, she was dead, and her spirit was almost dead, but she was just a little flame, almost burnt out, and I was the one that had to rescue her, and then I went back, and I remember telling my therapist, I said, I don't want to go back there, and he said, you're not going to go back alone, I'm going to go with you. So he took me back to the age of 6, and I seen that little girl for the first time, and I didn't like her because she was dirty, she was lonely, she was crying, and he told me to go in front of her, and I went in front of her, and I looked at her, and that was the first time that I ever hugged her, and I told her that she was going to be okay, and I still have to do that today. I still have to love that little girl and take care of her, and tell her that she's going to be okay. Because when she gets into abandonment, when she gets into depression, everything just seems so messed up, But then I have to take care of me. And the first thing I do is call someone, And my biggest support, is my sister, and I call her, and she'll just listen to me, and help me sort this out, and then I'm okay, and then I continue doing what I'm doing, so, and people, say that I'm strong. I don't think I'm so much strong. I think I'm stubborn, you know, you know, and, we're all survivors and we're all stubborn, which is a good thing. It's a good thing that we have that because we wouldn't be here otherwise, you know. We would have probably did ourselves in or probably, did more damage to ourselves because that's what we learned. But we learned how to be stubborn and we learned how to be strong, and we took whatever, damage that was done to us and we made it into something positive and we support each other. So, so that, so I had to, fight with my head and to do good things, and because I was always a negative thinker, because when you grow up and you're told you're stupid, you're not going to amount to anything, you start to believe that because you hear it so much, and I heard that most of my life, and so I had to shut those tapes off and give myself good, good affirmations, that I could do something with my life, that I was a good person, and and it takes a lot of work. Even today as adults, we still carry that stuff with us, So, how much time do we have?
It's 11:34, so we go till 12. So
oh, okay.
More to say,
okay.
Keep talking.
Okay. I could talk about this forever, because
that's okay. Keep talking because there are a lot of listeners. They want to hear. They are listening.
And I appreciate talking about this, because I like you to to take that journey with me, and to have a look at this with me, and I took this journey many times, and so it was a rough road, and so I went to school till I was about, I think I went to grade 11, and just got enough education just so I could get a job, and so by then I was probably maybe about 17 years old, and here I am, I'm coming out of residential school, going to high school, living in a non-Indigenous home in high school. I went up to grade 11. So where do I end up? I decided to go live in the city, and I thought, I'm going to be a big girl. I'm going to go to Toronto. I'm going to be a hairdresser. I'm going to get a good job, but I went to Toronto. And I went there about a month early before school started. I went to Margarets Beauty School, and which is one of the best beauty schools that there is. And but I would only go, just enough, just to like I did all my hours, and I had a certain amount of hours that I had to maintain, and I did those hours, and all I had to do was take the exam, and I would have been a certified hairdresser. I wouldn't take the exam, and my instructor begged me. She said to me, she said, why won't you take the exam? And I said, I don't want to take it, But when I look back, I think I was afraid to succeed. That I was going to, I was going to finish something. So what did I do? I just left all my equipment there. I took off, and the worst thing that happened to me in Toronto was I ran into somebody I knew. Then I totally forgot my priorities, forgot about school, and I started drinking. And I lost my partner. I was no longer getting, my school allowance. and I moved into a commune. And then I met who became my husband. You know, and I always joke around about it because I always say, we looked at each other, we met our eyes met across the room, and I said, get over here, you're just as sick as I am. you know, because he was a good looking guy, So how many of us met a good looking guy, But when you look underneath all that, that good looks, was a very sick man. And the thing about him was that, he controlled me, just like I was in residential school. He told me what to do. Residential school told me when to get up, what to believe, what I had to wear. I had no choices. So I met my husband who did the same thing. He told me, what to do. And I lived in that fear for 19 years. And then finally one day, nothing was happening. I told him I was leaving. And I took my sons, and I've got 3 sons. I took my sons and left. But I played that game for a long time. He would come back, and I let him back in. I went on the merry-go-round. But then finally one day, I had a counselor who said to me, could you accept the fact that he might not ever change? And I never even thought of that. And then finally I said, well, I never even thought of that. He said, what if he never changes? Could you live with that? And I said, no. He said, well, then don't go back then. And I didn't. So, that little wee word, no. I actually said no. And I tell you, I must have felt like I was about 6 feet tall. I was so happy that somebody that I was so afraid of, that I finally said no. And in residential school, I didn't know how to say no. So I finally learned how to say no and stick to it. And, and I knew that it was finished. I never allowed him back into my house again. And I raised my 3 sons by myself. And all those years that, that they were growing up, I was on mother's longs, probably only for about 1 year. I always worked. But I was, I was strict because it was strict in residential school. So, and I found myself, telling them, I would get their clothes ready for when they were going to school, and I would put their clothes on their bed. And they would get up in the morning and they would put their clothes on to get ready for school. And then finally one day I said to myself, what am I doing? I'm taking away their freedom of choice just like I did. I didn't have that choice, to pick the clothes that I wanted to wear that day. And I would just go to the shelf where our clothes were. I'd look for number 13 and there was my clothes. Didn't question nothing, didn't question what kind of socks I wore, whether the colors matched or not. And I found myself doing that to my sons. Finally I'd stopped and I said to myself, what am I doing? So, so finally I gave them that freedom of choice to pick whatever they wanted to wear. I took them shopping and, let them pick up the clothes that they wanted to wear to school. And then they went to a private school, they went to a Christian school, and they were regimented there. They were told what to believe, and I took a look at that too, and I took them out of there because they weren't allowed to learn their culture there, and my middle son was really close to my dad, and my dad was teaching him how to speak Ojibway, and my dad will always talk Ojibway to him. And I said to my dad, I said, don't do that. You know, and he said, do what? And I said, well, don't teach him the language. And so he didn't, and he stopped teaching him. And now, you know, my son told me about that one day, and I said, I said that? And he said, yeah. I said, what was I thinking? You know, so my son's grandpa, you know, the little bit of language that he did learn, he still remembers. So if he had, you know, the conversational part of it, you know, of the language, like he would still have that today. And I tell you, I had to apologize to him. You know, I told him, I said, you know, I'm so sorry that I did that. You know, that I robbed you of that opportunity. You know, so I didn't know. You know, I didn't know any better. You know, just trying to. I was stuck in my own stuff, I guess. You know. So they went back to public school, and, you know, they made friends, and, you know, they were learning how to socialize with their friends, you know. And I lived uptown. Then finally I moved back to my reserve, and my sons suffered because of that, because they were either not dark enough to be on reserve, or they were too light to be uptown. So, you know, so they suffered a lot of racism, you know, and so we had to learn how to balance that, and how to, you know, how to survive. So, you know, and with me, you know, being in Toronto, you know, trying to be the straight hairdresser when I was younger, I remember, you know, really suffering from my identity crisis, you know, because when I was taking my hairdressing, I didn't want to be Indigenous. I don't, you know, back then they called us natives, you know, and I told everybody I was Italian until I ran into an Italian, and she said to me, she said, are you Italian? And I said, yeah. And then she started talking Italian to me, and I didn't have a clue what she was talking about, you know. But I didn't, you know, I didn't want to be Indigenous, you know, because of that shame, eh? So finally I had to, you know, I accepted the fact, you know, that I'm, you know, Indigenous, and I started to, I really had a hunger to learn my culture. And I was really, really lucky, because the elders back home were still alive, and I sat with them, and I asked them all kinds of questions, and they told me. They taught me how, you know, how to do things, and took me with them, you know, to ceremonies, and I started to dance powwow. I made my own outfit. I got a spirit thing, you know, and so that part of me that was missing, you know, I found it, you know, and I accepted it, you know, and I was really, really blessed. And then I took my sons to ceremony with me, you know, and they got their spirit things, you know, so our lives really, really started to change, you know, turned around. So, and then, you know, when I was probably, yeah, I think I was 48. And one of my traditional brothers came over to see me, and he said to me, he said, there's a program going on, he said, on reserve. He said, have you ever thought about getting your education? And I said, me? You know, because I didn't think I was smart at all. You know? And he said, and I said, well, if I go back to school, I'm going to feel lost. And he said, well, let's go be lost together. You know, and he grabbed my hand, and he took me to the school. It was in the same residential school. There were classrooms in there, and they were utilizing the classrooms there. That didn't bother me, you know. But I went to, and I worked on my BA. So, you know, so I took all the credits that I had, and I got accepted to do my BA. So, and I ended up graduating in '98 with my honor Bachelor of Social Work from Carleton University. And, you know, and I realized, well, if I can do that, then I'm not stupid after all, you know. So, you know, so I worked in the field of addictions for 15 years, and I got myself certified in addictions. Yeah, and I laugh about it today because I got myself certified in gambling counseling, and I was the biggest gambler around. And but it wasn't a problem for me. But we joked about it because here I was, going to casino, and and here I am, knowing what the habits are, and then 2013, I worked in addictions for, like I said, 15 years, and then my job, folded up, and then I thought, now what am I going to do? Because by then I'm 62 years old, and I said, what am I going to do with myself now? I wasn't ready to move into a senior's home or settle down, and I wanted to keep going. So my partner, Mitchell, we lived together for 20 years, and here in Sarnia. That's how I ended up here in Sarnia. And he said to me, why don't you go get your master's? Because I always talked about it. And I said, me? And he said, yeah. He said, I'll support you all the way. And he said, you can do it. So I moved to Kitchener. I registered for the Aboriginal Field of Studies, and I got accepted, and I graduated in 2014 with my son. My son Sean was on the same program that I was, and people thought that we were competitive, but we weren't. We were more or less more of a support to each other, and he was, my biggest support, because there were so many, I was so stuck in this wanting to quit thing, and I wanted to quit, because I didn't think I could do it, because it was the hardest thing I ever did. And I phoned him one time, and I said to him, I can't do this. I should be home sleeping, and here I am studying at 4 o'clock in the morning. I thought, am I crazy? Am I crazy working on papers this late at night? And he said, just hang in there, Mom, we're almost done. So, I ended up completing it. Him and I ended up graduating together, and I walked up to get my degree, and he walked up behind me. And we made national news. We were in every Aboriginal newspaper there was. And we laugh about it today because we were the only ones that had a camera crew following us around. And so him and I, we developed, in our class, we had to develop a program. And so him and I developed this program for residential school survivors. And it's called Intergenerational Trauma, the story of a mother and a son. And so him and I presented it to our classmates, and then the university got a hold of it, and they started inviting us to the classroom. We started going to elementary schools in Kitchener, and it took off like wildfire. We made it as far as Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, to present that. We started to present it to frontline workers, executive directors, and we started to educate them about. That's the first time they've ever heard a family talk together. A mother, being a survivor, and my son, and how it impacted him, as a son of a survivor. So he shared his story. I shared my story about how addictions took over my life, and and it passed on to him. So a lot of the trauma that I suffered was passed on to him. We talked about that and how it affected the family. What did we do about it? How did we learn to talk about it? Did we end up in therapy too, together as a family? And we did. My 3 sons and myself, we ended up going to therapy because I didn't know how to be a mom. I didn't have those tools. I just, here I was supposed to be a single mom, and here I am out in there drinking and partying, And finally, I had to do something about myself. So I went to treatment, and I never went back. I'm going to be celebrating 33 years next month, and so all those things, everything that happened to me, I had to work hard at it. I had to take a look, why was I alcoholic? I'm still alcoholic, why I ended up the way that I did, and so I worked hard to do this stuff, and I always wanted to work with survivors, and that's what I'm doing today. So what I'm doing now is I'm fulfilling a dream of my own, and I'll probably do this until, either I'll lose my mind and won't be able to remember who you are, or, but I'll keep doing it, even if, like I have, problems with my back, but I can still talk, So that's how stubborn I am, I always find a way, I'll do whatever I can, to educate and to share my experience, strength, and hope with you.
I'm gonna jump in right now, Lila.
Okay.
Your story is amazing, but I see parallels with mine. One thing is the stubbornness. I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn, and I was like you. I lack self-confidence to achieve anything, and not, you just don't think that you're smart enough because that's what you're always told. So that journey is almost the same, but different in a lot of ways, because I didn't speak to my children until many, 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 many years later about residential school. So, but your journey is amazing. You're strong. You're very intelligent. Don't let anybody tell you any different. And it's amazing in the work that you're doing. If you can continue that, I think that would be awesome, because people really want to hear. They want to know what happened and what your life was like, even after, how it impacted you.
Yeah.
It really did. It has a lot of impacts on you, but you work through it. But not everybody can. Like you said, there's some people who just cannot talk. They're still stuck in that spot, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but we can be those voices.
Yeah.
We can be those voices. So what we're doing right now is, like you were talking about, the burial sites at, say, at Fort Francis there. And that's really what I'm involved in right now. Is we're starting up the Survivor Secretariat at Six Nations to look for any burial sites at the Mohawk Institute, right? So we're at that point in history where here's what we have to do right now, and we're not over all of this yet. Like they want us to get over it. You don't get over it. You have to learn to move through it and deal with it. And life goes on no matter what, right? So at this point, we're going to continue. And I really appreciate hearing from you. I really do. And I know that through Grandmother's Voice, who have been helping us all along since August, they are going to host a gathering on September the 30th at Milton for the survivors. So it's going to be a really fun day, an exciting day for us. And, it's like, wow, this is going to be special for us, And I think it'll be a really good day. So I don't know what's going on in your community for September the 30th, but that's where we are. And then we're supposed to have on October the 2nd and the 1st and the 2nd, we're going to have a survivor gathering. Whoever went to the Mush hole, the Mohawk Institute, that's supposed to be taking place, but that depends on how the COVID numbers are.
Yeah. Yeah. So what Sarnia is doing is July 1st, we had a march, and we had over 2,000 people that were here in Sarnia. And people came from all over, and so we're going to have it again on October, September 30th, and so that's what we're doing for Orange Day, and we're doing another march, and so we have some speakers that are going to be there. I'm going to be a keynote speaker there, so so if you bring your hand drum, bring your voice, and come and march with us and sing, and so we have some other activities that are going on in the community. So that's what we're doing in Sarnia.
That's amazing. So I think what we do is we just keep going, because we've come so far as survivors. We've come so far that you don't give up. You just keep stepping up and being right out front there. And I think that's what helps a lot of other survivors come forward too. They're beginning. Some that would never have spoken before, I think they're starting to have their voices heard now. So that's a good thing. Yeah. Hello, Jody.
Hi, ladies. Like, amazing, right? She's so
Yes.
amazing. And so I know I wasn't supposed to come back in the room, but I just wanted to. Lila, you're both of you are inspiring, and you said before, Roberta, that there are some that aren't in the place to speak yet, and sometimes we don't really need to say anything, right?
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important for people to speak about their experience, because it's it's just as healing for people to hear a story that resonates with them, that is similar, and that it very much could just bring the healing, enough of the healing to that person to really say, hey, it's just wonderful to know that I was not alone in all of this.
Yeah.
And so yes, very, very honored, Lila, that I met you several months ago. I think it was in February when we did our first event.
Yeah.
You reintroduced me to Dennis Wendigo and Grandmother's Voice to Dennis Wendigo, and he's just amazing and really supporting Grandmother's Voice and other organizations in our community and really in Southern Ontario to support non-Indigenous organizations that work with Indigenous communities. We're in a really great time right now, and so I just am really grateful for both of you to share this space and time. Lila, we probably won't see you before September 30th, but we definitely want to keep in touch and keep those conversations going about this campaign and what we do after September 30th, because there are so many comments and voices that are saying what we're doing here in this space, what the two of you are doing in your own communities is really powerful, for all people to heal. And that's really what Grandmother's Voice is all about, is just bringing the awareness, healing voices, and creating relationships. So, nyawa to both of you beautiful women. Love you, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye,
See you,
Lila.
everybody. Bye.